Here's the thing, I'm really bad at speaking off the cuff. I mean, I'm a pretty decent conversationalist. I can deliver a speech, I can work off notes, obviously, and I can do it comfortably, confidently. But if I ever had the gift of gab, then it was returned to the store unused and still wrapped. When I'm put on the spot, I tend to freeze up. The hardwire between my brain and my mouth, it starts to fray. Words come out, the wrong words, in the wrong order. As my mother once said, "You're speaking in riddles again." But for the story I'm telling today, I'm specifically talking about phone calls. Not all calls, mind you, but the important ones. The ones that have a potential to start a relationship or end a relationship, the ones that could nab you your new job, a raise, a promotion. Nowadays, you could probably do half those things in an email or a text, which I think is freaking awesome. But that hasn't always been the case, and some calls, no matter how nerve-wracking, are still worth making. The expert extemporaneous speakers can navigate the roughest of conversational waters to safely deliver themselves into the arms of their desired port. But for the rest of us, this guy, those calls could become a minefield of verbal gaffes, miscued, or nonsensical run-on sentences. I dread making them like a cop notifying next of kin. Am I the only one? What could go wrong, you ask? Well, what if I say something stupid? Or inappropriate? What if I talk too much? What if I talk too little? You see what the problem is here? I mean, each of these 10-digit dials could become the most important call of my life to date. And I don't want to blow it. And so it helps me to jot down a few notes, key points, or turns of phrase that are essential to my argument. I'll even lay down an entire roadmap of how the conversation could or should go. They become scripts of a sort. The script that I'm about to break down for you is completely real. I wrote it 7 years ago, and it still sits on my hard drive. And it begins. Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Morris. Did I mention I'm a little neurotic? See, even I'll admit, this may have been over-preparing. Sure, you never know who's going to answer the phone, but come on, am I going to forget how to address someone based on their gender? But no one wants to make that kind of gaffe, so it stayed in the script. And for the record, it was Mrs. Morris who answered. But it continues. This is Joe Haller, your daughter's boyfriend. How are you doing? Identifying yourself is key, but in retrospect, how are you doing is a dangerously open-ended question. What are they going to say? Well, the cheesecake we had last night was so rich that we've had the shits ever since. Actually, had they said that, I would have thrown away the rest of the script and probably come up with some innocuous reason for calling. But in the annals of conversation starters, I suppose it beats how is the weather. I wanted to say something to you and Mr. or Mrs. Morris. It seems like overkill, but I guess I thought at the time I could circle the appropriate title after the opening question. This script was starting to resemble a flowchart. I'm sure you can probably guess what it is, but I was wondering if I could get both of you on the line. And here's the thing, in theory, I felt certain they would know why I was calling. But in practice, I might have been assuming too much. The line didn't crackle with anticipation. There was no noticeable rise in the level of their excitement. It was more of a, oh, okay, sure. I also did not account for the amount of time, endless, eternal, awkward time it would take for two senior citizens to coordinate who would move to the other phone, and how long it would take for them to putter across the house, yelling back and forth to each other the entire time, so that both of them were on the line. It was time filled with jibber-jabber that is thankfully not immortalized in this script. And it probably included a question about the weather. Well, this probably won't come as a shock, but I love your daughter very much. This time, I was right. No one was shocked. She's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Cheesy? Yes. Sentimental? Yes. True? Yes. I want to spend the rest of my life with her, and I plan on asking her to marry me tomorrow. I think the hardest parts of these kinds of moments is the anticipation, wanting to get to your point quickly, but not rushed, eloquently, but not over-rehearsed. And so, as those words came out of my mouth, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had broken the ice. I had delivered my point in a direct and succinct fashion, and I had an ace up my sleeve. I knew they liked me. I had actually spent a lot of time with my potential in-laws. In a trial by fire, the first time I met Mrs. Morris, it was playing tour guide for 3 days when she came to visit Los Angeles and her daughter was unexpectedly traveling for work. Nothing like getting trapped in a car in LA traffic with the person you've never met who knows you're sleeping with their daughter. But the best part of this script, the real gem, was the next line. In my mind, it was a thing of beauty. I'm not really old-fashioned enough to ask for permission, but I wanted to let you both know my intentions and get your blessings beforehand. Now, for an avowed atheist, I wasn't particularly fond of the religious undertones of blessings, but seal of approval sounded like I was applying for a restaurant license. And validation, well, I wasn't in a parking garage. But if there was one thing that I learned in my 3 days trapped in a car with Mrs. Morris, it was, well, okay, there were two things I learned. First of all, she is one of those aforementioned expert extemporaneous speakers who can tell a story like nobody's business, even if it's the exact same story with the exact same amount of vigor that she told the day before and the day before that. But second, I learned that she and Mr. Morris were not old-fashioned, but they still appreciated tradition, and so did I. People like feeling in control of their own destinies, and it's moments like these that they remember. The tip of the hat, the deference to their opinion, the asking of permission. The easy route was to simply ask the woman I loved to marry me, and I took a longer road and checked in first with Pat and Mary Morris back in Shadyside, Maryland. The script worked to perfection. They happily gave me their blessings, practically cheered me on, and said they'd be waiting by the phone the next day. Oh, and the proposal? I didn't need a script for that one. And she said yes.